Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to a special review for the brand new Extreme album, simply called Six. It's their sixth studio album and just came out on Friday, June 9th of 2023. And we're going to dive into this. We'll do an unboxing and a full review and breakdown on the album in just a bit. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on really cool episodes just like this with a brand new review for Extreme Six, their new studio album. I want to give you guys a little bit of history. I always feel like understanding the background of a band can help, inform where they're going and that sort of stuff. And it's certainly going to tie into the review aspect. But the band itself formed in Boston, Massachusetts in 1985, releasing their debut album in 1989. The song Play With Me would be featured in the movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, helping to bring them to a wider audience. That's how I actually found them. Their biggest album to date, though, Pornography, would be released in 1990, proving to be an instant hit right out of the gate, climbing to number 10 on the Billboard 200 album chart, selling more than 2 million copies, having two top 10 Billboard Hot 100 hits. More Than Words went all the way to number 1, and Wholehearted, the follow-up single, went to number 4. Now, the band followed up that album with Three Sides to Every Story in 1992. Despite it being released during the height of the grunge and alternative rock eras, it still performed quite well. It was certified gold, selling over 700,000 copies. Unfortunately, that was really it for the rise of the band. Their fourth studio album, Waiting for the Punchline, was released in 1995 to little fanfare, and ultimately Gary Cherone would leave the band to join Van Halen in 1996 and released one album with them, simply called Three, in 1998. The band would eventually reform and release their fifth studio album, Saturday's Day Rock, in 2008, but it would be 15 more years until we got this one here, Six, their brand new studio album, the one that we want to talk about here now for this review. So as I said, sixth studio album, 12 tracks on it, 53 minutes long. It's a nice length of time. It's not too long, but it's a little bit more than that standard 45 minutes that we seem to be getting these days due to LP length and stuff like that. Featuring many different styles of rock on here. There are 3 ballads on this. The album is has a very modern sounding mix to it. It's a bit muddy to me in a way, and all that I really mean by that is that there's stuff that's in the background. Not that it sounds bad, it's just there aren't things that are as upfront as I would normally like in mixes. In particular, their other albums, if we're comparing it to that. But as an example, Nuno Bettencourt's guitar playing on here isn't as upfront as I would like for it to be. His solos are often in the background, and sometimes they're either dominantly to the left or right in terms of how they're mixed, so it's kind of an odd sounding thing about where it's coming from. It's not very balanced in the mix. Now, all of that I'm sure is intentional. This is something Nuno Bettencourt is very well versed at, both being a producer and mixing engineer and so forth, so I don't think this is something that is faulty in any way, shape, or form. That is why I'm calling this a more modern mix that's on this. All the songs on here are really good in my opinion. I do think that it's going to come down to the mix of this album as to whether you end up liking it or don't like it. I'm very impressed by Gary Cherone's vocals on this. Does a great job. They are not there's no filters or anything like that on it, so we get to hear his great vocals throughout on this. And of course, I'm extremely impressed by Nuno Bettencourt's guitar solos on this, even if they are a little bit to the background and so forth. None of the songs on here, none of the sounds of them, I think, are retreads of older material. It's a very fresh sounding album that is distinctly extreme. So even though it's got that modern flair to it, when you listen to the song structures and things like that on it. It is very much an extreme album. The album definitely takes some, warming up to, and that's where I was talking about the mix and so forth. Getting used to that newer style and the sounds and things like that that are on it. But the band has always experimented, and that's why I talked about, early on with the history and whatnot and the changing that they did, from the very overt glam sounding of Porno Graffiti to the more mature sounding Three Sides to Every Story to the more alternative modern rock soundings of Waiting for the Punchline and so forth. This is something that the band has always done, so this is really nothing new. I even hear some Tribe of Judah influences on this, and that was Gary Sharon's side project. Well, not really, I guess it was his main project after leaving Van Halen when he did. Yet you still get the trademark rock, metal, funk, soul, all that sort of stuff on here that we're used to, but it's basically been updated for a new era, and it's got a few left curves even thrown in for that, which I think is very nice and good measure to have that on here. But let's talk about the songs on here. There's way more variety on this album than the first three singles would lead you to believe. If you only know about those three songs, which had videos for them and stuff like that, which are mostly rock songs, or not mostly, those are the rock songs from the album, but it's like you would be left thinking that it is all kind of one-dimensional, and it's not. Track number 4, Other Side of the Rainbow. This one here has turned out to be a real highlight in my opinion. Probably should have been released as the second single, not the fourth single. It came out 1 week before the album was dropping. I opted not to listen to it as I wanted to only know those first three and then have a lot left to listen to when digging into it. It's got a sort of wholehearted feel to it. So already right there by track 4, it's moving off of those first three rock style songs that you got to hear up front, and it goes into a whole bunch of other stuff. Next up, track 7, Thicker Than Blood, along with track 10, X Out. Both of those were a real shock when I first heard those. Not that they were bad or anything, but it sounded like an electronic band collaborating with Extreme. Very outside of the wheelhouse of Extreme, anything that they've done before in my opinion. But it really pulls the album in that more modern direction. I think without these two songs here, you might not feel it as much, but these two here really kind of pull it into that contemporary sound. Track number 9, Hurricane. It's a beautiful ballad. It actually features Nuno Bettencourt and Gary Sharon duetting on it, which is just great and beautiful. I think they should do more of that. Track number 11, Beautiful Girls. This one has a sort of calypso sound to the thing. It's a very upbeat, happy-go-lucky, a perfect, pick-me-up style song. And then the last song, Here's to the Losers. This one was one that is a ballad, but to close the album, it's got such a great uplifting style message to it. It's got this sort of huge chorus with like 30, 40 people singing it, and it's just a ballad, but it's very uplifting, and I actually love how it closes out the album. So let's take a look at this thing. I really like the album cover, the way that they've written Extreme and 6. It's embossed, so it's raised. I don't know if, there you go, you can see it there, how it's actually imprinted and raised on it. There you go, you can see that. Back side of it, so it's kind of sparse and everything, but it's a bold one. When you open up the soft pack here, you get a cool shot of the band and listing the members and everything. We've got the disc here. Pull that out real quickly for you. It's got the gorilla on the front of that there, and then the booklet just slides right out of that. And this was the hype sticker that you just saw fall there. So I like to keep those with it. And then we have that. Right away though, we're starting to see, band shots, which I very much like. We do get the lyrics and all that sort of stuff, but we get more shots of the band, and I just absolutely love that. There are too many groups today that don't release enough band photos and things of that nature, and I just like a little bit more. I know with the internet, YouTube, all that, I can look up anything I want, but I still like to hold the album in my hand and see that stuff, and this album gives it to me, so I'm very happy with that. So the bottom line on this album here, It's a really good album. A lot of standout tracks on this thing here. They stand out, one way or the other on it, but they all stand out. And there's still a lot of variety on this album, yet the album is very contemporary in its sounding. As I said earlier on, I think it's going to come down to if you like the mix, the way that it's done, that sort of production style on the album itself is where it really pushes it into that contemporary feel. But it is definitely an extreme sounding album, so don't let that whole idea of the modern or contemporary fool you or turn you off from it. It's got all the characteristics that we love from Extreme. It just has them updating, doing it for a modern era. It's definitely, firmly rooted in the present day, but that is not necessarily a bad thing, as I've already said. It took me a while to sort of shake off the preconceived notions that I had on this album and to accept the fact that this was not going to be Pornograffitti #2. And I kind of think the band Extreme is a lot like Def Leppard, always looking to move forward. They're not probably ever going to go back to that sound again, no matter how much we want them to. But what they are doing is still very exciting, very interesting. I am absolutely loving this album. I think if you give it a chance, you may like it too. All right, so there you go. That is the review for Extreme 6, their brand new album that just came out on Friday, June 9th of 2023. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.